She's one of America's most respected journalists, fearless storyteller who's traveled the world exposing truth and compassion in equal measure. Behind the calm, composed face we see on television, Lisa Ling's life has been one of heartbreak, resilience, and incredible strength. From a painful childhood to rescuing her sister from North Korea, her story is filled with moments that show the price of empathy and the power of perseverance. Lisa didn't come from an easy beginning. Her parents' relationship was turbulent. She could sense the tension long before their marriage finally fell apart. She was just 7 years old. Her parents divorced, leaving scars that would follow her into adulthood. In one interview, Lisa recalled, "My parents had a tumultuous relationship throughout my life. My dad had actually been dating a Caucasian woman, which was frowned upon by his parents. They kind of pushed him to marry my mom. It wasn't exactly a fairy tale start. The separation between her parents was as messy as their marriage." For Lisa, the experience left deep emotional wounds. She once said, "I was so traumatized by it as a kid. I just never really wanted to deal with marriage." Her mother left for Los Angeles after the divorce. Though Lisa would visit her during summers, she was primarily raised by her father and grandmother. Her mother's decision to leave haunted her. In one interview, Lisa admitted, "I grew up thinking, how do you leave kids when you're that age?" I had resentment. With her father working long hours to support the family, Lisa was forced to grow up quickly. She became the lady of the house far earlier than any child should. She carried responsibilities that weighed heavily. As she entered adolescence, she found it difficult to connect with anyone about the confusing changes in her life. Her grandmother, a devout Christian, wasn't someone she could easily talk to about personal issues. When Lisa got her first period, she had to turn to an older cousin for help, something that only deepened the sense of isolation she felt. Even in her loneliness, Lisa found purpose. Just 16, she began her career in journalism, hosting a teen news program called Scratch. A young girl who had once felt unseen suddenly found herself in front of cameras, telling stories that mattered. At 18, she joined Channel One News and began traveling across the world to cover stories in Afghanistan, Iran, Colombia, Cambodia, and Algeria. She dropped out of college to chase her dream full-time, a bold move that came with its own share of challenges. As an Asian American woman in journalism, Lisa faced discrimination on multiple fronts. "I would travel to countries where women were more oppressed," she recalled. "People would end up talking to my driver or my cameraman instead of me." Even in her own newsroom, she faced sexism and racism from some of her superiors. "Because I'm a minority woman," she told Glamour, "I've been on the receiving end of some pretty demeaning behavior. I had to assert myself and make sure my voice was taken seriously." Just when it seemed like Lisa had found her voice in the world, life threw her into one of the darkest chapters of her existence. In March 2009, Lisa's sister, Laura, also a journalist, was detained by North Korean soldiers while filming a documentary near the China-North Korea border. Within days, she and her colleague were sentenced to 12 years in labor camps on charges of hostile acts. Lisa described that moment as the most terrifying of her life. "That call from my brother-in-law in the middle of the night, saying my sister had been abducted by North Korean officials, was the most horrifying moment I'd ever experienced." She refused to give up. Lisa used every contact she had, every ounce of her influence, every second of her time trying to get her sister freed. Determination paid off when former President Bill Clinton agreed to fly to Pyongyang to negotiate their release. It was a moment of unimaginable relief when, after 5 months in captivity, Laura and her colleague were finally brought home safely. Sisters later co-authored a book, Somewhere Inside, one sister's captivity in North Korea and the other's fight to bring her home, which became a New York Times bestseller. It wasn't just a story about survival. It was a story about the power of love and unbreakable family bonds. Despite growing up with fear about marriage and family, Lisa eventually found someone who shared her sense of purpose and compassion. In 2007, she married Dr. Paul Song, physician and activist. Starting a family of her own wasn't easy. Lisa admitted she was never sure she even wanted children. "I never had a desire to be a mother," she said. "I was career-driven. Felt like my work was my purpose." However, life had other plans. Lisa and Paul tried for years to have children, but faced heartbreaking miscarriages along the way. She suffered 2 pregnancy losses before finally welcoming her first daughter, Jet, in 2013, and her second, Ray, 3 years later. After her miscarriages, Lisa decided to break the silence that so many women suffer through alone. She appeared on The View, speaking openly about her pain and creating an online community called the Secret Society of Women to help others share their stories without shame. When her first child was born, doctors performed a C-section because the umbilical cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. The procedure went well, and for her second child, Lisa decided to have another C-section. This time, complications arose. She developed a painful infection and struggled to recover for weeks. "I regretted my decision," she later admitted, describing how the experience left her both humbled and grateful for her health. Lisa's challenges didn't stop there. In her 40s, while filming a documentary about ADHD, she decided to get tested herself. To her surprise, the results came back positive. For the first time, the constant restlessness and racing thoughts she'd dealt with her whole life finally made sense. "I felt relief," she said. "I had been fighting it for so long." She later explained that, in a strange way, her ADHD helped her in her career. It made her curious, driven, and hungry to explore the world's complexities. Then came another storm, the COVID-19 pandemic. As fear spread around the world, so did hate, particularly toward Asian Americans. After former President Trump referred to COVID as the China virus, Lisa became the target of online harassment and even death threats directed toward her and her daughters. She shared screenshots of the vile messages, including one that wished death on her child. Despite her fear, she stood her ground, using her voice once again to stand up against hate and ignorance.